I'm glad you're here. Why does being in the same room as someone you chose, someone you love, sometimes feel lonelier than being by yourself? There's a kind of silence that has nothing to do with being alone. It happens when you're sitting 3 feet from the person you love most in the world, shoulders almost touching, and you are completely, quietly, utterly alone. The dinner's done, the door is locked, the evening has wound down, and somewhere in the space between you, there's a distance that can't be measured in inches. That's what I want to sit with today. There's a strange kind of comfort in being in the same room as another person, while both of you are completely somewhere else. You're looking at your phone, they're reading, or you're watching something, they're catching up on messages. You're closer to them right now than to anyone else on the planet. You can hear their breathing. You can see the small movements they make reaching for something. And yet, emotionally, there's something vast and uncrossable between the 2 cushions of the sofa. We call it quality time, but if we're honest, it often feels more like a shared vacancy. 2 people in the same room, who have run out of the energy it takes to actually be with each other. And because you can't explain why the gap is there, you start to feel like something is wrong. Like if the relationship were right, you'd always have something to say. You'd always be in sync. But the reality is more ordinary than that. We are 2 separate people who have agreed to exist in proximity, and we both still have our own private corners of the mind that come with us everywhere. Onto the sofa, into the evenings we built together. Feeling lonely in a shared space isn't a sign that the love has gone cold. It's just what happens when 2 people reach the end of their social energy at the same time and have nowhere else to go but the same room. In the quiet stretches of the evening, we often use objects to hold the distance steady. The phone, the tablet, the television. These aren't just entertainment. They're a way of being in the same room without the vulnerability of a shared silence. When you're looking at a screen, you have a reason not to look at them. You have something to occupy the space where a conversation might otherwise have to go. The difficult moment arrives when the screen goes dark. The room goes quiet for a second, and you catch a glimpse of the 2 of you just sitting there. And you realize you have no idea what's happening inside the person next to you. They're a mystery right now, even though you know their coffee order and the way they sound when they're sleeping, and the specific sigh they make when something's bothering them. In that moment, you understand that togetherness has quietly become a kind of maintenance, a way of being close without actually reaching the jagged parts of each other's reality. And you stay quiet. You let the background noise of the house fill the space. Because if you spoke the truth right now, if you said, "I feel like I don't know you tonight," it would disturb something fragile. So you trade honesty for stability. You let the silence be the silence. And you sit with all the things that are easier to leave unsaid than to try to explain. By the time the evening settles in, most of us have already decided what we're not going to talk about. Not consciously. It just happens. You've put the difficult things away because you don't have the strength to unpack them tonight, and you're not sure they have the strength to help you carry them. So you keep the conversation functional. The bills, the schedule, the logistics of the week ahead, the things that need no vulnerability to discuss. And the weight of what's unsaid starts to fill the room. When you keep the most important parts of yourself away from someone, the connection starts to feel thin. You're loving each other through a filter. You look at them and wonder if they're doing the same thing. You see the small tension in their expression and wonder what they're holding back. And this mutual silence creates something strange. A room crowded with the presence of everything that didn't get said. You're protecting the peace of the household, but you've stopped being honest inside it. And there's a specific kind of heaviness that comes with this. The feeling that you're being loved for a version of yourself that isn't complete. You're performing contentment, so they don't have to worry. And they're likely doing the same for you. You've both built this life for the settled version of yourselves. But nobody left any room at the sofa for the version that's hurting, or bored, or just plain lost tonight. There's a particular kind of grief in watching someone you love exist when they think you're not watching. The way their face changes when they're not performing for you. The way they stare at something for a second too long. The sigh they let out when they think you're in the other room. In these moments, you see them as a whole separate person, a universe you will never fully know, with fears you'll never hear about, and struggles that have nothing to do with you. And for a moment, you feel like an intruder in their silence. This is where the real gray of intimacy lives. We want to believe that love means becoming one, that closeness means knowing everything. But we remain two separate people who have agreed to share a roof. And seeing them, in their raw, unobserved state, makes you feel the weight of how much of them is still beyond your reach. A quiet loss for the parts you can't get to. You wonder if they ever look at you the same way. Whether they notice when you've gone somewhere inside your own head. Whether they see the version of you that exists in the gaps between conversations. This kind of watching, done quietly, in the spaces of an ordinary evening, is its own strange form of intimacy. The recognition that the more you know someone, the more clearly you see how much you don't know. And that's not a failure of the relationship. That's just the reality of what two people are. Whole, separate, sometimes unreachable, even when their shoulders are brushing on the sofa. Shared spaces are often the loneliest places we inhabit. That's not a comfortable thing to say, but it's a real one. If you're sitting right now with someone you love, feeling a distance you can't quite name, you're not broken. You're not failing at the relationship. You're just experiencing what it actually is to be an individual inside a partnership. The two things can exist at the same time. You can be together and alone simultaneously, and neither one cancels the other out. This isn't a crisis to be solved. It's not a sign you need to communicate better, or spend more intentional time together, or any of the things people say when they want the feeling to go away. Sometimes the most honest thing you can do is just acknowledge that the silence is heavy, that you're two people in a room, that tonight the distance is just part of the furniture. You don't have to bridge it. You don't have to explain it. You can just notice it. Name it quietly, even just to yourself, and let it be what it is, a real, complicated, very human part of being close to someone for a long time. If something in this felt familiar, if you recognize that particular quiet of being side by side and still somehow far away, that's not a sign the relationship is failing. That's not a sign the love has gone anywhere. It's just the reality of what two people actually are. Whole, separate, sometimes unreachable, even when they're in the same room, even when they chose to be there. You don't have to fix the distance tonight. You can just let it be there. It's been there before, and the two of you are still in the same room. That's something. So, a question for us. When was the last time you felt completely alone, not in an empty room, but in a room full of the people who are supposed to know you best?